The blood on my white dress wasn't mine, but it might as well have been, considering how it marked the end of everything I thought I knew about love. My name is Kyle Morrison, and 6 months ago, I was just another 18-year-old college freshman at UCLA, studying psychology and working part-time at a campus coffee shop. I lived in a cramped dorm room with my roommate Sarah, ate ramen noodles for dinner, and spent my free time swiping through Tinder looking for something real. That's how I met Dante Castellano, though I didn't know his last name carried the weight of an empire built on shadows and blood. His profile showed dark hair falling over intense green eyes, a smile that seemed to hold secrets. 22 years old, studying business. His bio was simple: looking for something real. No games. I swiped right before I could overthink it. We matched instantly, and his first message made my heart skip. "You have the most beautiful smile I've ever seen. Tell me it's real and not just for the camera." We started talking that night and didn't stop for 3 weeks straight. Our conversations flowed from surface pleasantries to deep discussions about life, dreams, and love. He was intelligent, funny, and had this way of making me feel like I was the only woman in the world when we talked. Dante told me he was from a wealthy family in Chicago, that his father was in import-export business. He spoke about family with such reverence that it made my heart ache. Our first video call happened on a Thursday night. When his face appeared on my screen, I forgot how to breathe. The camera didn't do justice to the sharp angles of his jaw, the way his eyes seemed to see straight through to my soul. "Kyle," he murmured, and the way he said it made me feel like he was already touching me. "You're even more beautiful than I imagined." We talked for hours that night, and I found myself sharing things I'd never told anyone. How I felt lost sometimes, how I wanted to help people heal from trauma but worried I wasn't strong enough. "You deserve to be worshipped," Dante said, his eyes intense through the screen. "Someone should wake up every morning grateful that you exist." Our relationship deepened quickly after that. We texted constantly, and he started sending me gifts, expensive ones. Designer handbags, jewelry, flowers delivered to my dorm room so frequently that Sarah started calling me princess. "This is too much," I told him during one of our nightly calls, fingering a diamond bracelet. "I can't accept things like this." "Why not?" "I want to give you beautiful things, Kyle. You light up my world just by existing." More than the material things, it was the emotional connection that hooked me completely. When I was stressed about exams, he'd stay on video calls while I studied. When I had a panic attack after a difficult lecture, he talked me through breathing exercises. "I wish I could hold you right now," he said that night. "I hate that you're dealing with this alone." "I'm not alone," I whispered back. "I have you. Always. You'll always have me, Kyle." 3 months into our relationship, Dante started hinting about meeting in person, wanting to fly me to Chicago. It was Sarah who first voiced the concerns I'd been trying to ignore. "Don't you think it's weird that he's never given you his address? Or that you've never met any of his friends? Don't you want to know more about his actual life?" Dante was always vague about his daily activities, his friends, even his classes. When I asked specific questions, he had a way of deflecting with compliments. "He's private," I said, but it sounded like an excuse. That conversation planted a seed of unease. I started paying closer attention to inconsistencies, how he never seemed to have classes during normal hours, how he could afford expensive gifts on a student's budget. The first crack came when I decided to do some internet searching. I searched for his name on social media, in university directories, anywhere I might find traces of him. What I found instead was silence. No Facebook profile, no Instagram account. It was like Dante Castellano didn't exist outside of our private conversations. When I confronted him, his expression tightened. "I don't do social media. Too much drama. I prefer real connections, like what we have." "What about your school?" I couldn't find it either. "Kyle, why are you investigating me like I'm some kind of criminal?" I thought what we had was built on trust. Because I was already so deep in love, I let it go. But the third crack came 2 weeks later in the form of a news report. I was studying when the breaking news alert popped up on my phone. A federal investigation into organized crime in Chicago had resulted in multiple arrests, including several members of the Castellano crime family. The article included photos, and there, staring back at me, was a face I recognized. Not Dante, but someone who shared his strong jaw. his dark hair, his intense green eyes. The caption identified him as Vincent Castellano, alleged lieutenant in the Castellano crime organization and son of alleged crime boss Antonio Castellano. My blood turned to ice. The resemblance was too strong to be coincidental. I searched for more information about the Castellano family. What I found made my stomach drop. Antonio Castellano was the head of one of Chicago's most powerful and dangerous organized crime families. And there, buried in an article, was a sentence that destroyed everything. Antonio Castellano has 3 sons: Vincent, 28, Marco, 25, and Dante, 22, all of whom are believed to be involved in the family business. I sat in that library for 3 hours, trying to process what I'd learned. Dante Castellano wasn't just from a wealthy family. He was the son of a crime boss, and everything he'd told me had been a lie. When Dante called that evening, I could barely look at his face on the screen. "You're quiet tonight, beautiful. Everything okay?" I took a shaky breath. "Dante, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be completely honest with me." His expression grew cautious. "Of course. Is your last name really Castellano?" The silence was so long I could hear my own heartbeat. "Where's this coming from, Kyle? Just answer the question. Please." "Yes. My name is Dante Castellano. And your father, is he really an import-export? Or is he Antonio Castellano, the crime boss I just read about?" The mask slipped then, and for the first time, Dante looked genuinely rattled. "Kyle, I can explain. So it's true. You've been lying to me this entire time. I haven't been lying about the things that matter. My feelings for you, everything I've told you about how much you mean to me, that's all real." I laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Doesn't change who you are? Dante, you've made me fall in love with someone who doesn't even exist." "I exist. The man you fell in love with. The one who thinks about you every second. That's who I really am. Being the son of a crime boss isn't a detail, Dante. What do you do for your family? Are you a criminal too?" His jaw tightened. "My family's business is complicated." "Are you a criminal?" The silence stretched between us, and in that silence, I found my answer. "I can't do this," I said, reaching for my laptop. "I can't be with someone who's built our entire relationship on lies." "Wait. Don't hang up. Please, just let me explain everything." Something in his voice made me pause. Against my better judgment, I waited. "My father is Antonio Castellano," he said, the words coming out like they physically hurt. "And yes, he runs what law enforcement calls a crime family. I was born into this world, Kyle. I didn't choose it." "What does that mean for you?" "It means I handle certain aspects of the family's legitimate businesses. Real estate investments, restaurant chains. I don't get involved in the darker side of things, but I can't pretend that side doesn't exist. How do I know this isn't just another story? Because I'm telling you things that could get me killed if they got to the wrong people. My father doesn't know about you, Kyle. No one in my family does. You should have told me. From the beginning, I deserved to know. I wanted to. But I was terrified that you'd run, that I'd lose you before you had a chance to really know me. I need time to think," I said finally. "This is all too much to process." "How much time?" "I don't know what this is anymore. I don't know anything." I ended the call before he could respond. Over the next 3 days, Dante tried to contact me constantly. Text messages, phone calls, emails, flowers with handwritten notes. His messages revealed vulnerability I'd never seen before. He told me about growing up in a world where trust was a luxury, where showing weakness could get you killed. "You changed everything for me," he wrote in one email. "For the first time in my life, I felt like I could be myself with someone. Just Dante." Those words almost broke my resolve. Almost. On the 4th day, everything changed. I was walking back to my dorm when I noticed the black sedan parked across from the campus entrance. 2 men sat in the front seats, both wearing dark suits and sunglasses despite the fact that the sun had already set. They were watching me. Before I could process what was happening, my phone rang. Dante's name appeared on the screen. "Kyle, where are you right now?" His voice was tense, urgent. "Walking back to my dorm." "Why? Are there any men following you? Black car, suits?" My blood turned cold. How did you know that? Fuck. Kyle, listen to me very carefully. Do not go back to your dorm. Find the most crowded, public place you can and stay there until I get to you. What's happening? Who are those men? They work for someone who isn't happy with my father right now. Someone who thinks hurting me would be a good way to send a message. And somehow, they found out about you. They want to hurt me to get to you? I won't let that happen. But right now, I need you to focus on staying safe. Where can you go that's public and crowded? The Student Union building. There's a coffee shop that stays open late. Perfect. Go there now and don't hang up the phone. I'm already on my way to LA. The next hour was the longest of my life. I sat in that coffee shop, pretending to study while my eyes constantly scanned for danger. Dante stayed on the phone with me the entire time. When he finally walked through the doors, I felt a rush of relief so intense it nearly brought me to tears. He was exactly as devastatingly handsome as he'd appeared on video calls, but seeing him in person revealed the way he moved with predatory grace, the sharp intelligence in his green eyes as they swept the room for threats. "Are you hurt?" he asked. "No. Just scared." "The men outside?" "Gone about 20 minutes after you said you'd landed." Dante nodded grimly. "They won't try anything now, but this situation isn't over." "What does that mean?" "It means we need to talk. Will you come with me?" Every rational part of my brain screamed that going anywhere with Dante was a terrible idea. But looking at him, seeing the genuine concern in his eyes, I found myself nodding. The drive to his hotel was tense. His car was a sleek black sports car that probably cost more than most people's houses. The hotel suite was on the top floor with floor-to-ceiling windows offering a panoramic view of the city lights. "Tell me what happened today," I said. "How did those men know about me?" Dante poured himself a glass of whiskey. "My family has been having territorial disputes with another organization. This particular group has been escalating things, trying to find pressure points they can use against us. And I'm a pressure point. You would be, if they knew how much you mean to me. Which they apparently do now." I sat down heavily. "This is insane, Dante. 2 hours ago, my biggest worry was affording groceries. Now I'm apparently on some crime family's hit list. You didn't fall in love with the wrong person. You fell in love with me. The real me. But those things are part of you. You can't separate yourself from your family, from the danger. That doesn't mean I can't find a way to keep you safe while also keeping you in my life." "What would that look like?" Dante was quiet for a long moment. "Honestly, I don't know. This is all new territory for me. Your father doesn't know about me. No. And if I have my way, he never will. Is that realistic? Probably not forever. But maybe long enough to figure out a better solution." "Like what?" Dante turned to face me fully. "Like finding a way out of the family business altogether." "Is that even possible?" "I don't know. But I know that watching you terrified because of choices I made. I can't live with that." "But if you leave your family, what happens to you?" "Leaving would mean giving up everything. My inheritance, my position, probably any chance of ever reconciling with my father or brothers." "And you'd do that? For me?" Dante reached out and cupped my face in his hands. "Kyle, I would do anything for you." The intensity in his voice should have been romantic. But I recognized something unhealthy in that level of devotion. "That's not fair," I said, pulling back. "You can't put that kind of pressure on me." "I'm not putting pressure on you. I'm telling you what I'm willing to do to be with you. It's the same thing. If you sacrifice everything for me, what happens if things don't work out? That's not going to happen. You can't know that. We're teenagers, Dante. But what if I need to go back?" The words came out before I could stop them. "What if I need to go back to being a normal college student?" Dante went very still. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying that maybe we're just too different. Maybe the fact that we come from completely different worlds isn't something we can overcome. You're scared. What happened today scared you, and you're running." "Yes, I'm scared. But not just of what happened today. I'm scared of losing myself in your world. Who are you supposed to be?" "I don't know yet. That's the point. I'm 18 years old, and I'm supposed to be figuring out my own identity. But with you, I feel like I'm just becoming an extension of your story. So what do you want to do?" "I think we need to take a break." I think I need some time to figure out who I am when I'm not constantly thinking about you. A break, Dante repeated flatly. Yes. Some space to think clearly. How long? I don't know. A month? 2 months? And during this break? Do we not talk at all? I think we shouldn't talk for a while. And I think we should both be free to explore other options. Dante's jaw clenched. Other options. If we're going to take a real break, it has to be a real break. Dante closed his eyes and took a deep breath. If this is what you need, then I'll give it to you. But Kyle, I need you to promise me something. What? Promise me that if you're ever in danger, you'll call me immediately. I promise. The next 2 months were the most difficult of my life. I threw myself into my studies, picked up extra shifts, and tried to rebuild a sense of normalcy. Sarah was incredibly patient, helping me remember who I'd been before Dante. You're different when you talk about him, she told me one evening. Like you become a smaller version of yourself. It was painful, but accurate. I had been molding myself around Dante's needs. I'd been so focused on being the person he wanted me to be that I'd stopped developing into the person I might become on my own. Slowly, I started to remember what it felt like to make decisions based solely on my own wants and needs. I signed up for a volunteer program helping survivors of domestic violence. I joined a hiking club. I started writing in a journal again. For the first time in months, I felt like I was growing instead of just existing. But I also missed Dante constantly. I missed our conversations, his laugh, the way he could make me feel like the most important person in the world. The breaking point came at the end of my second month of space. I was walking back from my volunteer shift when I saw a familiar black sedan. This time, I didn't hesitate. I called Dante. He answered on the first ring. Kyle? Are you okay? They're back. The men in the black car. Within 30 minutes, he was there. The sedan disappeared as soon as Dante's car came into view. This has to stop, I said as I got into his car. It's been 2 months. Why are they still following me? Because the situation with the rival family hasn't been resolved, Dante said grimly. If anything, it's gotten worse. And they still think I'm a way to get to you? They think you're a way to get to my father through me. Which means this isn't going to end just because we're not together anymore. You mean I'm going to be a target for the rest of my life? Not necessarily. But until this particular conflict is resolved, you're going to need protection. What kind of protection? The kind that means you can't live your normal life anymore. Safe houses, bodyguards, restricted movement. I felt like I was drowning. For how long? I don't know. Could be weeks. Could be months. Or you could let me handle this permanently. What does that mean? It means I end the threat against you by removing myself from the equation entirely. By leaving your family. By making it clear to everyone involved that hurting you won't accomplish anything. We sat in silence while I tried to process this impossible situation. There's another option, Dante said quietly. What? You could marry me. I turned to stare at him. I'm sorry, what? If you were my wife, you'd be family. Hurting you would mean declaring war on the Castellanos. Most organizations aren't willing to escalate to that level. You're talking about marriage as a business arrangement. I'm talking about marriage as a way to keep you safe while also keeping you in my life. I laughed, but there was no humor in it. 2 months ago, I asked for space because our relationship was too intense. Now you're proposing marriage as a solution to a mob war. I know how it sounds. But Kyle, I've spent the last 2 months thinking about what you said. I realize that I don't care who you decide to become, because I'll love every version of you. And marriage is how we do that? Marriage is how we buy ourselves time to do that. Marriage is how we make sure you're safe while we figure out the rest. What would it actually look like? Whatever you want it to look like, Dante said immediately. We could have a small ceremony, just legal paperwork. You could keep your name, keep going to school, keep living your life exactly the way you want to. And what would you get out of it? You, Dante said simply. I'd get you, and the chance to prove that I can be the partner you need. This isn't a proposal. This is a business arrangement. Does it matter what we call it as long as it keeps you safe and gives us a chance to be together? I looked at him and saw genuine uncertainty. He was just as scared as I was. Can you imagine building a life with me? A real life, not just this intense romance? Can you imagine us arguing about whose turn it is to do the dishes? I've been imagining exactly that for months, Dante said softly. That's all I want, Kyle. A real life with you. I closed my eyes and tried to think clearly. Despite everything that had happened, I did still love Dante. And the 2 months apart had taught me something important about the nature of that love. I didn't love him because he was dangerous or exciting. I loved him because of the way he listened when I talked about my dreams, because he made me feel valued and cherished. If I said yes, I said slowly, what would happen next? Next, I call my father and tell him that I'm getting married and that my wife is now under family protection. And after the wedding? After the wedding, we figure out how to be married. We learn how to live together, how to balance your goals with mine. What about your family business? I can't completely extract myself overnight, but I can promise you that I'll work toward finding a way to handle the legitimate side while distancing myself from anything that makes you uncomfortable. This is crazy. Yes, it is. We're too young to get married. Probably. What if it doesn't work? What if it does? I stared at him for another long moment, weighing the absolute insanity of what he was proposing. I need conditions, I said finally. Whatever you need. I want to finish college. I don't want to become just Dante's wife. Agreed. I want us to live separately for the first year. Dante looked like he wanted to argue, but he nodded. Okay. And I want complete honesty from now on. Done. And if this doesn't work, I want to be able to get a divorce without it affecting my safety. If you want a divorce, you'll get a divorce. I'm not interested in trapping you. I took a deep breath. Okay. Okay? Okay. I'll marry you. The smile that spread across Dante's face was brilliant and genuine. Really? Really? But Dante, I need you to understand that this isn't me giving up on figuring out who I am. This is me choosing to figure those things out with you instead of without you. I understand. And Kyle? Yeah? I love you. Not the version of you that fits perfectly into my life, but the real you. I love you too, I said, and for the first time in months, it felt like a promise instead of a burden. 3 weeks later, I became Kyle Castellano in a small ceremony at the courthouse, with Sarah as my maid of honor and Dante's brother Vincent as his best man. Meeting Dante's family was intimidating, but his father treated me with courtesy and what seemed like genuine warmth. 6 months after our wedding, Dante and I moved in together for the first time. It was awkward initially, learning how to share space. We had fights about mundane things like groceries and the thermostat. But we also had conversations that went deep into the night, slowly building the kind of intimacy that only comes from truly knowing someone. Dante kept his promise about honesty. He told me when family business required him to make decisions I wouldn't approve of, and he asked for my input on finding ways to gradually distance himself from the more problematic aspects. A year after our wedding, the territorial dispute was finally resolved. I was no longer in danger, which meant our marriage was no longer necessary for my protection. So what now? I asked Dante one evening as we sat on the couch. Now we get to find out if we actually work as a couple when there's no external pressure forcing us together, he said. Are you nervous about that? Terrified, Dante admitted, but also excited. I love you, I said, and I meant it completely. Not the desperate, intense love of our early relationship, but something steadier and deeper. I love you too, Mrs. Castellano, Dante replied. Actually, I said, looking up at him with a smile, I think I'm ready to really be Mrs. Castellano now. What does that mean? It means I'm ready to stop hedging my bets and start building a real life with you. Are you sure? I'm sure. It took me a while to figure out the difference between losing myself in a relationship and finding myself through one. You make me want to be the best version of myself, Dante. Not a different version, just the best one. 2 years later, we renewed our vows in a ceremony that was everything our first wedding hadn't been. Elaborate, romantic, and attended by everyone we cared about. As I walked down the aisle toward him, I thought about the 18-year-old girl who had swiped right on a stranger's photo, looking for something real. She had no idea what she was getting herself into, but she had been brave enough to take a chance on love anyway. When Dante slipped the ring onto my finger for the second time, I wasn't Kyle Morrison anymore. I was just Kyle, exactly who I was meant to be, in love with exactly the right person for all the right reasons.